signal in order to put an end to this fascist regime, which is still in existence in Tripoli. May I avail myself of this opportunity to launch a fraternal, sincere appeal to all the officers in the armed forces in Libya that they support their own people. And finally, that they renounce their support for Gaddafi, for this criminal leader. And finally, that they no longer participate in these crimes and murders. This is a leader who loves nobody but himself, and he is prepared to take all necessary steps in order to continue this repression against his own people. And I would like to make an appeal to my brothers, the Libyan officers. I tell them that this leader is going to abandon them himself if they do not take the right decision here and now, immediately. The Libyan people is known for its tolerance. The most important thing for the people is to put an end to this regime. Our people is not out for vengeance. They are not looking for vengeance. Our people are aware of the very difficult conditions of repression which it has to face. We know how the money is used to kill people. I make an appeal to the sons of Libya, to the people of Libya, to continue their struggle. We must help our young people so that they might be able to restore Libya to Libyans. It is our duty to work in order to restore our state to our people. And no doubt, this will happen very soon. Madam President, I am pleased that the Security Council will refer this matter to the International Criminal Court so that it might be able to investigate the crimes committed, starting with the 15th of February. And I am also pleased with regard to the interaction between the members of the Council in their response to these incidents. We are pleased that sanctions are not being imposed against those who might abandon Colonel Gaddafi in the end. And I thank you, Colonel Abadam, and I would ask the other officers like him to take the same decision which he took, so that these officers not be obligated to be tried by the International Court. I thank you once again that my people will be able to react very soon to the cause of liberty, and that we can put an end to this dictatorial regime. Thank you, Madam.
For his statement. I now give the floor to the Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon.
Thank you, Madam President, distinguished members of the Council, Excellencies. Let me express my appreciation to the Security Council for its work today. I welcome the resolution you have just adopted unanimously. While it cannot by itself end the violence and repression, it is a vital step, a clear expression of the will of a united community of nations. The actions taken by the regime in Libya are clear-cut violations of all norms governing international behavior and serious transgressions of international human rights and humanitarian law. They are unacceptable. It is of great importance that the Council, in response, has reached a consensus and is determined to uphold its responsibilities for the maintenance of international peace and security. When I addressed this Council yesterday, I noted that fundamental issues of peace and stability are at stake across the Arab world, and that our collective challenge is how to provide real protection and halt the ongoing violence. I urged you to consider all options for action. You have now done so in a wide-ranging resolution. The text sends a strong message that gross violation of basic human rights will not be tolerated, and that those responsible for grave crimes will be held accountable. I hope the message is heard and heeded by the regime in Libya. I hope it will also bring hope and relief to those still at risk. The sanctions you have imposed are a necessary step to speed the transition to a new system of governance that will have the consent and participation of the people. For my part, I will continue to monitor the situation closely and remain in close touch with the world and regional leaders to ensure their support for swift and concrete international action. I would like to take this opportunity to express my solidarity with the people of Libya as they brave the bloodshed and as they cope with possible shortages of food and medical supplies and other humanitarian impacts. As the Libyan people take their destiny into their hands, as is their right, I hope that the new future for which they yearn, peaceful, prosperous, and democratic, will soon be theirs. Excellencies, I commend the Security Council for its decisive action today. In the days ahead, we will look for similarly decisive steps from the UN General Assembly and the international community as a whole. Today's measures are tough. In the coming days, if needed, even bolder action may become necessary. Thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary General for his statement. There are no more speakers inscribed on my list. The Security Council has thus concluded the present stage of its consideration of the item on its agenda. The Security Council will remain seized of the matter. The meeting is adjourned.
And there you have it. The UN Security Council has passed unanimously that sanctions vote against Libya. And we heard there the last speaker, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, who expressed his thanks and support to the members of the Security Council for passing that resolution unanimously. Just before him, we heard from the Libyan ambassador to the United Nations, who also expressed his support for the resolution, condemned what is going on in Libya. That ambassador, of course, breaking with his government. And during his address there to the Security Council chamber, calling the Libyan government a fascist regime. Let's bring in our correspondent at the United Nations, Kristen Salumi. She's been watching developments over the past 24 hours since this resolution was initially introduced. And Kristen, presumably the provisions that are called for in this resolution will be implemented immediately.
That's right, and the point of moving so quickly on this resolution was to send what many of the ambassadors referred to as a clear, swift, and strong message to Muammar Gaddafi and his inner circle that the violence must stop, and it must stop immediately. The other message in this resolution is that the perpetrators of the violence will be held accountable. The resolution refers the situation in Libya to the International Criminal Court. It is only the second time that the Security Council has ever referred a country to the International Criminal Court. The first time was Darfur, or Sudan, over the situation in Darfur, and that, of course, resulted in an indictment against the president of Sudan. But this is the first time, the only time, that the Security Council has been unanimous in referring a country to the International Criminal Court. So a very significant resolution, a very strong resolution, and the fact that all 15 members of the Security Council were on board for this is seen as a very strong message to the regime in Libya.
Kristen, just to get some clarification on that provision that you talked about, where the crackdown by the Libyan regime on protesters will be referred to the International Criminal Court. What happens there? Will it be referred for investigation in the first instance?
That's right. Now, this was a hotly debated point leading up to the adoption of the resolution, and you heard some of the ambassadors express their reservations about this on the sidelines of the debate leading up, and the Indian ambassador actually talked about this in the council chamber in his speech. He said that they would have preferred a more gradual approach to this. India, in fact, 5 members of the Security Council themselves are not parties to the Rome Treaty, the Rome Statute, which establishes and recognizes the International Criminal Court. So some members of the Council are not so comfortable with going there with a situation like this. But in the end, many of them said that it was the pleas of the Libyan ambassadors and the support of the Libyan ambassadors for this resolution that swayed them, as well as the support of many African and Arab delegations here at the United Nations. So this will go forward immediately. However, there is a clause that was put into the resolution in the end which points out that under the way the international laws are written with the International Criminal Court, there is a 12-month delay, essentially, before the investigation actually moves forward. It's immediately referred, but there is kind of a grace period before the investigation actually takes place. And at any time, the Security Council has the ability to put a halt on this investigation. Now, this is written in international law, but it was added into the text of the resolution, apparently to appease some of these delegations who were concerned about the impact that calling for this investigation might have. But